Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm your host, Henry Lim. I'm a senior manager of product marketing for Capital One Software. We're starting to share how Slingshot helps businesses to optimize cost, reduce inefficiencies, and accelerate time to value of Snowflake. With us today, we have Rahul Mode. Hey, Rahul.
Hey,
Rahul is
Henry.
a senior director of solutions architecture here at Capital One Software, where he works with customers to help them drive the most value from Capital One Slingshot. Previously, Rahul spent 8 years at Amazon leading a solutions architecture team, working with enterprise customers in the IoT and digital payment space. With that, I'll turn it over to Rahul to get started.
Thank you, Henry, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you all for being here today. During the demo, I'll be sharing my screen and going off of camera just to optimize your viewing experience of Slingshot. And then we'll jump back on screen after the demo is concluded to answer any questions that you may have. Meanwhile, you can use the Q&A pod to submit any questions. Should we get started,
Yep.
Henry?
Oh, yeah, sure. One thing, or a couple housekeeping things. So, please note that this webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing the recording via email soon. And any of the business names that's mentioned throughout the session are all for demonstration purposes only, and not our actual customers. There's going to be a quick poll right after Rahul's demo before we dive into your questions. With that, let's jump right into it.
All right. Testing if the screen share is working. Yes, great. So we will start with Capital One's journey, followed by what led us to creating and productizing Slingshot, and then jump right into the Slingshot's product demo, where we'll spend most of our time today, and then open it up for Q&A. So back in 2017, when we began moving to the cloud, we needed a partner to help us better manage and scale our data ecosystem. That's when we first onboarded to Snowflake. Being early adopters of Snowflake, our business teams at Capital One quickly grew the number of workloads and use cases on the data cloud. This was possible thanks to Snowflake's scalability, performance, high availability, and its security and privacy features. However, this rapid growth presented a challenge in predicting our spend and deploying Snowflake resources efficiently. We quickly learned that we needed proper controls and oversight to better understand cloud costs, optimize Snowflake usage, and ensure governance processes across lines of businesses. To overcome these challenges, we built Slingshot. Slingshot helped us optimize our costs, reduce waste and inefficiencies, and accelerate time to value of Snowflake while adhering to the governance requirements. Now, Slingshot is a B2B SaaS product which offers powerful cost and performance insights, actionable optimization recommendations, and governance capabilities all in one product. So, how did Capital One benefit from Slingshot internally? Well, the success was self-evident with more than 50,000 hours saved in manual effort, onboarding as much as 400 new use cases while expanding our Snowflake footprint to a staggering 60 petabytes. Slingshot actually helped Capital One maximize our investment in Snowflake, and we are glad to report our customers are seeing very similar positive results. With that, let's jump right into the demo. Welcome to Slingshot. Every data platform team and data leader needs three things for most effective Snowflake management. visibility into costs and performance across all accounts and regions. Second, continuous and dynamic optimization. And third, a scalable governance model. Now, these three things are at the core of Slingshot features. Thus, Slingshot homepage here features the top optimization opportunities across all your Snowflake accounts, followed by costly queries, as well as any new data management requests that need your attention. Now, what you see here is the potential opportunities or potential savings opportunity identified by Slingshot after analyzing all your warehouses and their historical usage data. We call these warehouses, excuse me, we call these Slingshot recommendations. Let's take a deeper look into what they are. Slingshot continually monitors your warehouses and suggests optimal configuration changes to warehouse size, clusters, and auto suspend times, especially for the warehouses that are under or overutilized, a concept which is not currently present in Snowflake. What you see here are all the cost and performance optimization opportunities that Slingshot identified in your Snowflake environment. Each recommendation quantifies the corresponding cost savings here, as well as the potential impact, if there is any, to the average query execution time. In some cases, you will also receive recommendation which slightly increase the cost, but the benefit is on the performance end by significantly decreasing your average query execution time. For example, let's take a look at one of these recommendations. Now, Slingshot has identified a warehouse, Nexus 6 Warehouse 1, with a cost savings opportunity. By adjusting its size and cluster settings throughout the day and week, we can save more than $1,000 per month with little impact to performance. So how is this recommendation able to generate these cost savings? Well, it's a result of our dynamic right sizing schedule, which once applied will optimally adjust the size, cluster setting, as well as auto suspend and statement timeout values for this warehouse. For instance, you see how we scale up the warehouse to large during peak usage when this warehouse might be overutilized, and scale back down to optimize its utilization, to scale back down to medium to optimize its utilization. Now, moreover, depending on the peaks and valleys of your workload, Slingshot lets you customize these scheduled slots. So you may move on Monday, you may keep this at large and same cluster size and save it, and it will be 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. all large. You may override the recommendation. We don't want you to blindly trust these recommendations though. So besides viewing and implementing a dynamic warehouse schedule, you can see the rationale behind each recommendations. The themes. For example, on Monday, we see that there was a high average queue and query load especially during 5 to 7 p.m., for which we are recommending downsizing from large to medium, but increasing the cluster count. And by doing this manipulation of the warehouse settings, we are able to save you cost. So if you go back to here, 5 to 7, you'll see we set the cluster min max to 1 and 6, and warehouse was scaled down to medium. Now, let's look at the issues identified by Slingshot at the high level. So at a high level, this warehouse had multiple issues such as low query load, sometimes high query load, and then so on. For such a dynamic workload, Slingshot will recommend a dynamic schedule. For advanced data admins, and I won't go into too much detail here, but Slingshot provides detailed data analysis behind each recommendation with usage patterns and corresponding query sizes, data spillage, query load, queued queries, as well as idleness data. And you can filter this data for in other dashboards as well, but here we let you know exactly what duration was looked at for the metadata of this warehouse. So you may ask that I understand recommendations. I understand recommendations, but why do we provide such advanced tooling for recommendation analysis? Do platform teams have time for such deep dive for each recommendation? Well, based on our own experience and customer feedback, we understand that although such tooling is not needed for most warehouses, some business application and workloads adhere to strict SLAs and are hesitant in modifying warehouse sizes. I'm sure you've all been there. Thus, we offer this tool within Slingshot to analyze the recommendation and its projected performance impact. Not just this query, but a tool to actually analyze the impact on each query if this recommendation were to be applied. The visualization and the table view allows users to see overall project uh, the projected change in runtime for their queries, as well as the top 1,000 projected longest running queries and the impact if they applied the recommendation. That is the projected execution time. You could even filter based on the SLA of this warehouse to identify how many queries will breach the SLA if this recommendation was applied, and then take care of those queries as needed. And that's how Slingshot recommendations are able to optimize your Snowflake environment so effectively. I'm sure you can't wait to try it out in your own Snowflake environment. Now, switching gears from recommendations. In the last 3 years of Slingshot and talking to customers, one of the top main points or pain points we heard from Snowflake customers was the lack of granular visibility into their Snowflake spend. Most commonly, though, data management leaders and finance stakeholders didn't have a straightforward way to get insights and predictability into their Snowflake usage and costs. Slingshot solved this problem for our customers by providing them with powerful insights, dashboards, and reporting from organizational level costs down to cost per query analysis. Now, let's take an example. The VP of data engineering within your organization wants to track spend across the enterprise by lines of businesses. This is not readily available in Snowflake. The cost analysis tab in Slingshot provides this cost visibility at an aggregate enterprise level here to see overall Snowflake costs and trends over time, and further lets you drill down into cost by type of each compute versus storage and other serverless services by accounts and lines of businesses across all Snowflake accounts. We also provide you a projection for the next 6 months based on your current enterprise costs. At the highest level, though, you can go to contract analysis to further analyze Snowflake usage and trends and projections for the contract duration. Now, this view gives platform owners the average daily usage cost and target daily usage cost to optimize usage and stay within the contract budget. In another scenario, Snowflake admins can go even more granular. So going back to, let's say, warehouse costs, the Snowflake admins can go more granular to review costly users and costly queries across all Snowflake accounts. Now, our customers tell that this comes in very handy for analysis of costly users and costly queries throughout their all across their all accounts and has been a customer favorite. Costly users, for example, list top 100 users that accumulated the most spend in a specific duration, whereas costly queries list the top 50 queries that cost the most to run. This can be extremely useful, especially when combined with Query Advisor, our tool to optimize queries and find inefficiencies in them. So for example, I can view top costliest queries in Query Advisor and ask it to analyze any one of them to get suggested fixes. Here, I just viewed all my top queries across accounts. That's why the account name field here, also the frequency, and I'm able to analyze each of them here to see if Slingshot can recommend any suggestions to fix any inefficiencies in the query. And this feature alone saved Capital One significant cost per query when it was first introduced within Capital One. Another popular feedback from customers that we received was a need to do cost attribution and reporting on shared resources. We would love to hear from you in the Q&A if there are any questions about this or if there were challenges that you faced, but would love to show you how we in Slingshot solved this problem for our customers. Slingshot provides a comprehensive tagging feature to accomplish this use case. With Slingshot tags, customers can now tag users, warehouses, and databases to be able to do cost attribution, not only for compute, but storage and serverless costs too. Let me show you how this helps with cost attribution and showback with an example. Here you see, as a Slingshot admin, you can create and modify and assign new tag groups and values to Snowflake objects that I just showed you, which is warehouses, database, and Snowflake users. So I already have some Slingshot tags assigned here. So now let's revisit the previous example where your VP of Data Engineering had asked for cost reporting for all lines of businesses. But there is a problem. You learned that the analytics warehouse used by your 3P, it's a 3P BI tool, are shared by users from different lines of businesses. So this specific warehouses which are used by your 3P third-party BI tool are shared by users which are from different lines of businesses. And so warehouse tagging alone can't help in this scenario. Using our new tags, the data engineering team now creates a tag group called Cost Center and tag values for different LOBs such as Acme Sales, Acme Engineering, Doppler, if that was a product, Doppler Sales and Engineering, and assign respective data analyst user to these cost centers. And you can do that at a user level here. So Acme Sales, Acme Engineering, and so on. Now, this solves the cost attribution problem across shared resources because Slingshot is now doing the heavy lifting of actually assigning costs to this cost center based on the user activity. Moreover, your VP of Data Engineering can now go to the cost analysis dashboard and go to our cost breakdown report to see the breakdown of costs based on cost centers and view all the data for Acme Sales, GTM, Doppler Sales, and such, and so on, the distribution of cost, not only for compute, but all various Snowflake services. All right. So that's tagging for you. How are we doing on time? Okay, because I'd love to show you a few more powerful features of Slingshot. I think we are fine. So let's talk about governance and federation. At Capital One, we recognize the full power of data cannot be realized without good governance. Balancing good governance with data security and quality requirements while maximizing the value of data is a challenge. With Slingshot, we enabled federated governance for all our teams and lines of businesses by empowering them with self-service access to warehouse provisioning and visibility into their usage costs while balancing it with proper oversight. And let me show you how we did that. So let's take an example of a well-federated organization using Slingshot. Each LOB has access to Slingshot to create or modify warehouses and track their own usage and costs through dashboards. And users with warehouse owner role, one of the 4 Slingshot roles, can create a warehouse with a preset schedule for warehouse depending on the estimated workload type. So let's get right into it. So I'm a user, I belong to one of the organizations, let's say business development, and I want to create in the QA environment just a warehouse for my testing. Let's see what this template is, low capacity, and I'll explain in a minute what we do with templates. Acme QA warehouse 11. I'll put a statement timeout. Let's do 300 seconds because that's the value set in the template. And testing. Here, in this example, I was only allowed to create because I selected the QA, I was only allowed to select of very specific warehouse sizes, clusters, min-max, and scaling policy. And I'll show you how. So I can't go beyond extra large here. So as you know, Snowflake allows you to create warehouses with even 4XL, 5XL, 6XL if needed. But here my admin has restricted and put a guardrail to only go up to extra large. So I'll select small here. Same with cluster size, I can only select up to 6. Scaling policy, economy or standard, let's keep that. And for expediency sake, I'm just going to say that all weekdays, I'm going to go with this schedule for the entire day. And then on the weekend, I am going to, again, just select the entire day, go extra small, not needed, economy, auto suspend for both. That's the best practice. So we don't want to get charged for a lot of idle time. And that looks good. That's it. And you get a nice calendar view of what schedule this warehouse will be on as soon as it is created. And you can submit for approval where this request will then go to the level of approval flow that you have implemented within Slingshot. We allow up to 2 levels. So it can be the platform team or your line of business VP that approves this request and it gets provision. And with that, I'm going to conclude the demo. If any of this resonated with you based on your Snowflake journey and challenges, we'd be more than happy to explore how Slingshot might benefit you the same way it helped Capital One.